constructive approaches to conflict include fair fighting, conflict resolution, and/or conflict management. How should we address conflict? Fair fighting is the idea that everyone will work from the same set of rules, be respectful to one another, and not take cheap shots. Conflict resolution accepts many of the rules of fair fighting, but tries to avoid the negative connotation. Is there a better way to deal with conflict? Welcome to Presentation, Ponder, Practice. Fair fighting operates on the following rules: identify the issue, choose the right time, choose the right place, begin with a positive stroke, stick to the issue, do not bring up the past, do not hit below the belt, take the other seriously, express anger non-abusively, do not play games, do not be passively aggressive, avoid asking for explanations of behavior, avoid labeling and name calling, and avoid triangles. Conflict resolution, in many ways, is fair fighting under a different name. The goal is to bring about a resolution to the problem while avoiding negative connotations, thus altering the negative title or name for the approach. Conflict management views conflict as a process to be managed rather than a situation to be resolved. There are 5 major styles of conflict management: avoidance, accommodation, competition, collaboration, and compromise. Avoidance is the least cooperative and least assertive way of managing conflict. Very little can be accomplished with those who avoid one another. Accommodation is highly cooperative but not assertive. This shows greater concern for others than for self. Competition shows a high level of assertiveness and concern for self without much regard for others. Collaboration is the peak of cooperation and assertiveness. Concern for the relationship from both parties or multiple parties move them to resolve issues or situations. Compromise is concern for self and concern for others that results in give and take because of concern for the relationship. Hear now Ephesians chapter 4, verses 25 through 29. Therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth each one of you with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry, and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. He who steals must steal no longer, but rather he must labor, performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with the one who has need. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification, according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. Speak the truth, each one of you with his neighbor, would be assertiveness. Cooperation comes up when it is said, for we are members of one another. Concern for self, the other, and the relationship is the best understanding and approach from which to launch out in dealing with conflict in relationships within the body of Christ. The different styles of conflict management are variously exemplified by Jesus during his life on earth. Because Jesus healed a man who had a withered hand on a Sabbath day, the Pharisees conspired against him as to how they might destroy or kill Jesus. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 14. Verse 15 says, but Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there. As more and more people came to Jesus with their need to be healed, Luke wrote, Jesus himself would often slip away to the wilderness or desolate places and pray. Luke chapter 5, verse 16. A withdrawer must return to deal with the conflict in order to avoid further damage to the relationship. When the law of the Lord was being violated by some at the temple who were buying and selling there, Jesus entered the temple and drove out the people and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. Jesus was direct with them. He said, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a robber's den." Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 and 13. Jesus was not ugly about this matter. He was authoritative and decisive. He was highly assertive on this occasion. In the next chapter, Matthew chapter 22, we discover that compromise should not result in the compromise of truth, but the compromise of outcome. The Pharisees wanted to know if it was right to pay taxes to Caesar. Jesus perceived their malice, the perverting of virtue or moral principles from their purposes to evil ends. His teaching was, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. Matthew 22, verse 21. Compromise is valid when giving men what they should receive or what they need without violating God's will. Jesus yielded to those who arrested him, falsely accused and convicted him, and ultimately crucified him. Consider Matthew chapter 26, verses 50 through 54. And Jesus said to Judas, "Friend, do what you have come for." Then they, the large crowd with Judas, came and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus reached and drew out his sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all those who take up the sword shall perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? How then will the scriptures be fulfilled, which say that it must happen this way?" Yielding is an appropriate response at times, but it can be easily misused by the one who is yielded to or the one who yields. Jesus confronted the people who reacted against him, such as the scribes, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees. Jesus collaborated with those who reacted positively, like the Samaritans or his disciples. Jesus resolved issues with both groups of people, those who opposed him and those who accepted him. Conflict management follows the two greatest commands. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment, Jesus said. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22, verses 37 through 39. May God bless you in all your relationships. May he also bless your management of conflict.